I want Joe's view on what's hot right now. Well, we've talked about what's not hot, yes, to a certain extent already, but the things that you're seeing that are really helping marketers get ahead, where you think people should be focusing their attentions in 2025 and beyond. Like, what are you excited about in marketing? Go anywhere you want to go with the 10 questions that I've just given you.
No, it's all good. So, first things first, let's acknowledge the title of this podcast, right? So Marketing Amongst the Madness. So we recently did a survey, the Marketing Meetup community. We had 1,123 respondents. So it was reasonably well representative of the marketing community. Certainly not statistically hugely relevant, but, enough to give us an indicative kind of idea. One of the questions that we asked, the focus of the survey, to backtrack a bit, but the focus of the survey was not so much marketing, but marketers. And so we just wanted to ask the question, how are you? How are you feeling? And so one of the questions was around the emotions associated with our job. And so we had a list of emotions. I think there was about 20 different ones, and we just asked folks to click the ones that resonated. Of the 1,123 folks who responded to the survey, over half, so the most resonant emotion that we found was positively challenging, which for me was actually a really was a positive emotion. I use that language, and we didn't do the qualitative bit afterwards, so we don't know if everyone resonated in the same way with the language. But for me, I interpreted that as a perspective on, like, things are quite difficult, but I'm approaching it in quite a proactive, positive way, and so it's all right type of thing. The second and the third emotions associated with marketing were uncertain and stressful, which are negative emotions in my mind. And so when we come back to the title of the podcast, Marketing Amongst Madness, then I think the first thing is, like, acknowledging that we're in an uncertain place as an industry. Like, things are changing. We're not the only industry that it's changing for, but we are an industry in change. People are finding that quite hard from a stressful perspective, but there is a lot of positivity and optimism. I remember, so I'm an actual pessimist. I actually don't. I'm an optimistic pessimist, so I carry myself quite optimistic.
I can't believe that, Joe. I hate interrupting people on the podcast, but I have to. I just see you as just this such smiley, uplifting, positive person. So to hear you're a pessimist, I'm shocked.
Yeah, well, I work on my optimism. Like, it's a sincere, like, focus area for me to surround myself with optimistic people, because I think it's a wonderful trait to have. But I don't have that as a natural part of my character. But the thing that I sort of take that from that is that marketers are generally, sort of being quite positive, which is fantastic. Now, what are the things they're being positive about? Well, I think something which has sort of taken my attention in the past couple of weeks has been the stuff that Rand Fishkin is speaking a lot around, sort of zero-click marketing. And really the backdrop for this context is AI and sort of changing stuff. But I think what I've been really interested in doing is just observing SEO folks speaking about how their roles are changing right now. Because really they're at the coalface of how we are producing content and have produced content for the last 15 to 20 years. The way that marketers have worked for such a long time is produce content on a piece of site, on a website, take LinkedIn, for example, hope to direct folks to your website, which probably has some helpful blog content on, or is found organically on Google, and then you'll convert them in some way, so a newsletter conversion or whatever it may be. SEOs are speaking about how LLMs are now changing that. So instead of being sent to site, Google is changing how they're displaying results. ChatGPT searches on the rise, etc., etc. And so the SEOs that I'm seeing are saying, well, we need a whole new bunch of metrics to actually speak about the quality of our work so we can justify the work we do. How are we going to adapt to these new changes in the technology? What this speaks to is a wider big change, which is like not what we do. What we do has remained the same. It's still marketing, but how we're doing it is actually profoundly changing. And so it may well be that your website in 2 years' time is a lot more bottom of the funnel than top of funnel, because people have done all of their research on AI about the companies they need to do. So by the time they get to our website, they're like, I'm ready to buy. You know, I don't need to see your about section because I'm there already. And so what that means is that in terms of our content production and stuff like that, we're doing a lot more selling, a lot more awareness stuff on our social platforms, on our Reddits, our LinkedIns, our Instagrams, on our TikToks. And then like we're building the awareness. Those are the awareness hubs. None of them are on our own websites. They're all sort of elsewhere. And then by the time folks are coming to us, then the game has changed just a little bit. So I'm sort of thinking about that kind of stuff. And I think it's just quite representative of like a wider shift, which is like the thing that we have done, the thing that we do now as marketers doesn't change in its basic construction. We're still looking to match a product or a service to a human being. But how we go about doing those things are changing. The last thing to say on that is like, I've been in marketing for 10 years now. So like, I'm sort of like not new into the industry, but not been in there forever either. But if you think about marketing, how we've done it for like the past 20 years, since the beginning of the internet, like, well, not the beginning of the internet, but the sort of popularization of social media, then there's a lot of folks in the industry who only know this version of marketing, whatever it may be that we're operating in right now. And so actually that's quite a scary thing for a lot of folks. You know, the uncertainty thing that we spoke about earlier is like the stuff that we've known, the stuff that we've been training ourselves on for the past 10 years, that's now shifting away. And so it's not really, that doesn't sound like a particularly hopeful message, but in a way it is, because like change has happened, and actually the stuff that we've only been learning about for the last 20 years, it's only a relatively short amount of time. Things change, things shift, things move. And so I don't want to be one of those AI bros, because like I think they get a bit apocalyptic, but like just there's an iteration upon what we do, and that's quite exciting. If you choose to take it excitedly, it's also very scary.
It is scary and exciting. That is exactly how I feel on a day-to-day basis, Joe.
Yeah.
So you really nailed it on that. When you were saying about the survey that you did, I was thinking stressful.
Yeah.
Because it does. But one of my team members said this to me quite. She said, "But Katie, some people work really well under pressure."
Yeah.
That is you. And I actually really enjoy change. I'm a bit older and longer in the tooth. Also, I had a bit of an upside down career and started work when I was about 17. So I've actually worked in marketing and advertising for, this shows how old I am, 25 years. I started work at 17 though. So here I'm 42. Yeah. You'll know now. But and I have sat through a couple of iterations.
Yeah.
Like, when I was at school, the internet, I was on dial-up at home, and I've been through MySpace, Facebook launching. When I started working in marketing, we didn't have social media; it wasn't a thing. So I do feel like now is the biggest, apart from like responsive websites, mobile phones. It's all think at one point we were going to be browsing the internet on a watch, which didn't happen. But like we are at this inflection point where there is a lot of change, and I actually embrace and love that. I think it's going to be really exciting. What I'm glad about what you said, and I totally agree with, and it's probably, well, maybe because in the back of my head the website isn't as important, but what it's taken nearly over a year to get our new website live. But if I truly think about how when I'm potentially taking on a new client or researching people, I do that on LinkedIn. I much prefer to go to their LinkedIn profile, see how many employees they've got, see what the kind of content they're posting,
for sure.
Well, how do they position themselves on their LinkedIn page,
for sure.
Then I very rarely actually go and look at their website, because I just find the information easier to digest on LinkedIn. And if you think about the younger audiences who are coming in, who are the future of buying behavior, whether it's B2B, B2C, whatever it might be, they are all on social channels. Very rarely does my 17-year-old daughter go on a website. She lives on TikTok or Snapchat most of the time. But that's how they engage. It's a social first approach. So discovery and actually purchasing more often than not now is found through social channels, definitely in the B2C world. And B2B marketers, I strongly believe, obviously particularly for me because I work in B2B, it's the same. People go to LinkedIn to do their research. Like am very lucky that I get to interview lots of amazing people on this podcast, but also when we're working with clients here, we do quite a lot of qualitative research, and we're interviewing CMOs, heads of digital, CTOs. Yeah. How do you go and find, the information that you need, or, partners that you want to work with, or the tech platform that you're using? And you know where they go to? LinkedIn and YouTube. So if you're not on LinkedIn and YouTube, you're not pushing yourself out there on those platforms, your next client isn't going to find you. They're going to find someone else, because believe me, they're not going to Google to search for you anymore. No. They're not. They're just not.
It's funny, isn't it? Because in a way, nothing has changed, but everything's changed. So like, I worked for an agency in 2017-ish. I remember my boss at the time sort of said, don't worry about the website so much. That's almost like a brochure, which is like, at this point, if they landed on our site, then they're probably already interested. And so in a sense, he was either ahead of the time, or just nothing has changed in a way. And we've just got more of an awareness of this thing because of this new tool that's come in and stuff like that. And so it's really curious. I think, there's so much more to it as well. I think it may just be exposing some of the, I don't want to call them lies, but the sort of shortcomings of what we've done, and some of the crutches that we've had as marketers for a long time. So you think about attribution. For a long time, we've told ourselves that you can track the entire user journey, and you'll be able to say X came from Y, which meant that Z is worth investing in, or whatever it may be. If you think about LLM search or TikTok or LinkedIn or whatever, where people are going to be doing these things, these are inherently untrackable. So the very thing of the very nature of marketing is that we have to start looking at different signals to what we're doing right now, which doesn't quite take us into a place of vibes, of like, oh yeah, the vibes seem good, so let's do that thing. But the conversations that we have about marketing are being quite different, and so we need to have buy-in. And so like I posted this morning on LinkedIn about internal communication for this very reason, which I think that there just needs to be such a strong emphasis of marketers going forward on internal communication, again, buy-in from the rest of the team, understanding what marketing is and why we're doing it, and the things that we're doing. Otherwise, I think in the next few years, we'll start to look increasingly like the colour in the department. I know that's a trope that a lot of people speak about, and like they feel it now. I hate that future gazing conversation because nobody knows. But like by the same token, like I can imagine a future where if our data is taken away from us a little bit more, then having that legitimacy for marketing and justifying our efforts is going to become harder if you don't have to buy in from the rest of the team. So having that clarity, being able to say, this is why we're doing what we're doing, and this is what we're doing, is going to become so important. So like, there's just so many different layers of nuance to all of this, but it's just like a really interesting conversation in general.